Peaceful Saturday afternoon in the Lombok district, Mochi City, Netherlands. Local residents were enjoying their weekend when they unexpectedly saw a billowing black smoke in the distance, sparking curiosity. Where's that fire? They whispered and pointed toward the smoke column. Few suspected it was right in their neighborhood. A fireworks factory containing a massive amount of explosives was smoldering. And in the blink of an eye, the most terrible disaster in Dutch history struck, claiming the lives of 23 people and leaving over 1,500 homeless. The horrific explosion at the SE fireworks factory in 2000 left severe consequences that shocked the world. So what was the real cause behind this tragedy? Was it due to human negligence, or were there other hidden complexities? What did the local and central governments do to address the aftermath? All will be revealed in today's video. And before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe to Kanha TV, the channel about disasters, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next fascinating stories. Your support is the biggest motivation for us to continue making new videos. The Frantic district of SE Fireworks, a city near the eastern border of the Netherlands, was originally home to working-class families in low-cost housing, quite far from strict government control. On that fateful day, Frantic residents poured into the streets when they saw the thick black smoke rising. They were completely surprised because they didn't know there was a fireworks production facility in their neighborhood. In reality, living standards here were so low that a fireworks factory was allowed to be placed right next to residential areas. Out of curiosity, more and more people flooded the streets, causing traffic congestion. At first glance, this scene resembled a festival. At the same time, the black smoke from the factory quickly attracted the attention of the local fire department. The rapid response team arrived at the scene within minutes, but they were surrounded by hundreds of curious people, hindering their access. The crowd ignored the firefighters' requests to clear the way. Everyone wanted to stand in the closest position to observe. Police had to intervene, dispersing the crowd to create a path. As soon as the road was cleared, firefighters immediately rushed into the factory yard, where black smoke was rising increasingly fiercely. At this moment, Danny DeVries, a young cameraman living right in the neighborhood, was also present to record the event. His lens was directed at the street and the smoke column rising above the rooftops, an extremely convenient working position. Suddenly, a series of fireworks shot into the sky, followed by a sharp explosion sound, shattering the somewhat excited atmosphere outside. People suddenly became alert. But at this point they realized that anything burning inside the fireworks factory could cause unpredictable danger, directly threatening their lives. Therefore, the crowd began to panic and flee. Meanwhile, DeVries, with the instinct of a professional cameraman, remained calm and continued filming. But suddenly, a loud explosion occurred, throwing him to the ground. The camera continued recording by inertia, but the frame only showed thick dust and smoke covering the entire neighborhood. A few minutes later, the dust began to settle. The people around gradually recovered from the shock. In the blink of an eye, Frantic Street looked no different from a disaster movie scene. The level of destruction around showed this was not merely a small-scale fireworks workshop. The epicenter of the explosion was the SE firework factory, the leading fireworks supplier for major festivals in the Netherlands. The factory's facility in Frantic was established in 1976, when this area had developed into an urban area. Initially, the factory consisted of one workshop and 13 storage warehouses, designed to store 18 tons of fireworks. By 1996, the owner decided to increase capacity to 105 tons. And just 2 years later, this number continued to rise to 159 tons. At the time of the disaster, SE Firework had 13 reinforced concrete bunkers in the central, 16 steel containers, 7 lightweight concrete warehouses, and 2 large aircraft hangars. Clearly, the factory was storing a significant amount of explosive materials. However, the serious problem was placing such a facility containing many explosive materials close to residential areas with almost no one knowing. At 3:03 p.m. on May 13, 2000, the local fire station received an emergency call reporting a fire in a Frantic area. At this time, neither the caller nor the firefighters knew exactly it was a fireworks factory. Arriving at the scene at 3:08 p.m., the fire crew noticed fireworks materials burning. They were most likely the cause of the fire. Since this was an extremely dangerous type of fire, they immediately called for additional support. because controlling the flames was not simple at all. Fortunately, that day was Saturday, so there were no workers inside the factory. Initially, firefighters detected multiple fire points in the main workshop. The flames quickly spread throughout the central area, covering both the front and roof of nearby aircraft hangars. By 3:28 p.m., the fire had reached the steel container system, starting from container E2. 6 minutes later, container E2 exploded, shooting fireworks scattered into the sky, frightening everyone. The situation inside the factory worsened. The fire gradually got out of control, forcing firefighters to retreat to save their lives. Amid the chaotic scene, in the factory yard there was still a local photographer named Marcel van Dithoven. Risking to capture close-up shots of the flames, the fire spread to the concrete bunkers, causing them to explode one after another. One of the explosions created a fireball with a diameter of 85 meters, accompanied by a shockwave equivalent to the tremor from 770 kilograms of TNT. That horrific explosion would destroy many other warehouses, causing all materials inside to burn fiercely like a sea of fire, and trigger a massive explosion that engulfed the entire area. The explosion's epicenter was determined to be in area C11 in the center, with terrifying destructive power estimated equivalent to 4 to 5 tons of TNT. This explosion created a huge fireball with a diameter nearly double the previous fireball, 134 meters, and the sound of the explosion could be heard 15 kilometers away. As a result, it wiped out the entire 40-hectare area around the factory, with up to 400 houses flattened and 1,500 other houses severely damaged. 15 streets adjacent to the fire area were completely burned down. Firefighters from neighboring towns, and even units from across the German border, poured into Innsbruck to assist. They had to fight the fire throughout the day, while the fire continued to spread to the nearby Icos factory, which housed annealing machines, a material containing many toxic mineral fibers. The burning of the annealing machines released many toxic gases into the air, causing environmental pollution concerns. Throughout the weekend, amidst the tragic scene, rescue teams worked hard to search for survivors under the rubble. As a result, 23 people were confirmed dead, including 4 firefighters who were the first to arrive at the scene. Daring photographer Marcel van der Tiehelen also did not survive the explosion. At Medispatium Tenti Hospital in Innsbruck, 974 patients were admitted for treatment of various injuries. Among them, 50 were seriously injured and had to be hospitalized for a long time. The disaster severely affected the mental health of most victims, especially those who lost their homes. Many fell into states of insomnia and anxiety, facing difficulties in daily activity, and experiencing a decline in self-confidence for a long time afterward. Material damage was also enormous, with an entire neighborhood wiped out, while the remaining houses were severely damaged and had to be demolished, leaving over 1,500 residents homeless. Estimates show damages reaching $486 million. In response, Dutch Prime Minister Kim Kok and Queen Mika visited the scene of the incident, pledging that the government would support the reconstruction of the devastated residents. The fireworks factory explosion in Innsbruck was considered an unprecedented tragedy in history, only somewhat comparable to the Allied bombing in 1943. Immediately, the incident attracted nationwide attention, with everyone wanting to know the cause. An investigative committee called the Austrian Commission was established to thoroughly investigate the cause of the accident. The investigation revolved around 3 main hypotheses. The first hypothesis suggested the fire originated from human error in handling fireworks. Second, the explosive materials might have spontaneously ignited inside it. Finally, the possibility of arson was not ruled out, as there have been many suspicious fires in the area recently. 6 days after the disaster, authorities issued arrest warrants for the 2 company owners, Ruby Parker and Willie Pater, as the factory was found to have numerous operational violations. When police raided, both had gone into hiding. However, that same day, Pater surrendered, and Parker appeared the next day. Inspectors questioned these 2 about violations in the fireworks storage procedures of the factory. At the central workshop, identified as the epicenter of the explosion, there were nearly 900 kilograms of fireworks, even though it was the factory's day off. According to regulations, if fireworks were not used, they had to be stored in a warehouse, not left in the workshop. More seriously, the factory stored more than the permitted amount of explosive materials, and even contained many types of fireworks outside the approved inventory. Typically, fireworks are classified based on their accident risk. Type 4 has a low fire risk. Type 3 has a fire risk that can cause explosions and emit small fragments. Type 2 has a risk of emitting large fragments but does not cause mass explosions. And Type 1, the most dangerous, carries an extremely high fire risk and can cause mass explosions. According to the permit, SE Fireworks was only allowed to sell 136 tons of Type 4 fireworks and 2 tons of Type 3. However, in reality, the containers and boxes contained 16 tons of Type 4, 153 tons of Type 3, 5 tons of Type 2, and 1.6 tons of Type 1. Indeed, there were over 160 tons of explosives stored illegally right next to residential areas. Additionally, this factory had many issues related to storage safety. The most obvious was the arrangement of containers and concrete boxes within the factory. They were placed too close together, without any safe distance using earthen walls or any form of separation as required by regulations. Even 2 of those containers were not permitted to be in their current locations. Almost no storage facilities were regularly inspected or equipped with standard fire detection and suppression devices. Moreover, aerial photos taken days before the explosion showed container doors always left open, increasing the risk to the materials inside. If the container doors were indeed open on the day of the disaster, this would certainly have allowed fire to spread quickly from one container to another, causing a rapid chain reaction. Surprisingly, just 1 week before the explosion, the factory was inspected and certified as fully compliant with safety regulations. However, these violations still do not precisely explain the cause of the explosion. The possibility of human error seems low since no workers were present in the factory that day. Spontaneous combustion of the explosives is also unlikely because, despite the hot weather, the temperature inside the warehouse wasn't high enough to cause ignition. If ignition occurred, electrical short. One of the 2 owners arrested, Rudy Parker, attempted to defend himself by blaming an arsonist. According to Parker's testimony, the former owner of SE Fireworks, Hans Lebrun, had a financial motive to set the fire. He had sold the company to Parker and Willow Bader on April 27, 1998, but still owned the land and warehouse, leasing it back through a sale-leaseback agreement. Parker claimed that Hans Lebrun wanted to sell the land to the city government, thus needing to remove the tenants, making arson a feasible solution. In fact, police had arrested Andre Riffu, 34, accused of arson at the SE Fireworks factory on May 13, 2000. However, they asserted the incident was unrelated to Hans Lebrun, and although DeVry persistently claimed his innocence. In May 2002, the court sentenced him to 15 years in prison, based on witness testimony, gunpowder residue on his pants, and his confession. But later, when the truth came to light, DeVry was found to have been wrongfully convicted. In 2003, the appeals court declared him innocent and released him. The final report of the Austin Commission was published on February 28, 2001. The report concluded that the factory owners committed several serious offenses related to the management of fireworks materials and equipment of various structures, along with the improper use and arrangement of these structures. Regarding the responsibility of local and government authorities, the Commission only proposed some system improvements without imposing specific penalties. On April 2, 2002, the Dutch court sentenced the owners of SE Fireworks to 6 months in prison for illegally importing and trading fireworks, violating safety regulations and storage permits. Additionally, they were each fined $2,540 for safety regulation violations. However, since they had already been detained for 3 months and were given a 3-month suspended sentence, both were released immediately. The more serious charge of negligent arson was ultimately dropped. Years after the disaster, Paul Van Patten, a well-known whistleblower, conducted his own reinvestigation of the case. Initially, he thought the investigators had performed poorly, but later declared that the entire incident might be a large-scale cover-up orchestrated by the government. According to Van Patten's report, 2 detectives had raised many of these issues during the official investigation. But those reports were dismissed and the 2 detectives were fired. However, an internal police investigation confirmed that those 2 detectives were correct. Nonetheless, the results of the internal investigation were never made public. Van Patten also emphasized that information about the illegal fireworks stored in the warehouse was primarily based on scene reconstruction, conducted by the Dutch Forensic Institute NFI and the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research TNO, rather than clear physical evidence. He believed that both the investigation and the Austin Commission report aimed to conceal the government's share of responsibility. Nevertheless, it must be acknowledged that the government and local authorities made every effort to address the aftermath and rebuild Rumbek. The government provided significant financial support, while the inside authorities directly implemented the area recovery plan. Acknowledging their responsibility, the city council did not interfere too deeply in the decision-making process but delegated this authority to the residents. Those most severely affected were allowed to decide on a new layout of the neighborhood, while local authorities only played a role in reporting and providing advisory support. Ultimately, the residents' vision became a reality through the design of Beard the Brouwer from Amsterdam. Rumbek was rebuilt into a cozy neighborhood as before, right on the site of the old fireworks factory. Part of the foundation remnants destroyed in the explosion were preserved, allowing nature to reclaim them. Time has the potential to heal all wounds, but it will still take many years to soothe the pain of the survivors of one of the most catastrophic accidents in modern Dutch history. And you, what are your thoughts on this disaster? Please leave your comments below. We are very eager to hear your and everyone's shares. If you found this content useful, please share it with more people. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Realm of the Unseen Kanha TV channel so you don't. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you again.
If the veil stirred, subscribe and meet the next encounter.